Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem, and though this is about a month late, this is my Booktube Newbie tag. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer for film, television, and gaming, specializing in book adaptations. And I've had this channel now for about a month, and I'm kind of new to the whole tagging thing, and I just kind of found out that there's this whole Booktube Newbie tag thing, so I figured I'd jump on the bandwagon and answer some questions about kind of how I got into Booktube and all that jazz. So, thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you kind of like this kind of content. Jumping right into it, I'm going to launch right into question 1. Why did you start this channel? So there's a couple different reasons. First of all, I first started watching Booktube in 2019, and I found Daniel Green's channel. I was starting to read Wheel of Time at the time, and then I found Mike's Book Reviews, which is like my favorite channel now, and then Red Fury Books and Brian Lee Durfee and all this. And I've always fantasized about the idea of sharing kind of my knowledge and love of books as well. And, comments can only go so far, and sometimes you want to jump in the conversation like I'm doing now. And so, it's really fun to be able to connect with people. And I think that is one thing I learned from the pandemic is connection is so vital to keeping us inspired and getting to talk about the books that we love so much. That's like my favorite kind of thing in the world. So it's also, very hard to find friends who read as much as I do and who are as obsessed with books as I am. I probably have a book addiction, but it's the best kind of addiction to have, right? So, so I'm excited to share my love of books with you all and kind of, get some great recommendations from you all. And I've already started to in the first couple of weeks, so I'm excited to continue that. So question number 2, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? So, part of the Booktube experience for me, a little bit unique maybe from other Booktubers, is when I started reading The Wheel of Time, all of the wonderful love of the Booktube community kind of inspired me to actually write a theme and record it with Budapest Orchestra, how I imagine the Wheel of Time TV series could sound like. And that led to Lorne Balfe, the composer who eventually scored the show, to hire me to be a composer on the season 2. So I, as a direct result of all this love of Booktube and kind of investigating these different series and things like that, that inspired me to write a piece that got me to actually score on the show. So I got to be the music team lead for season 2 and craft the sound of the show. And then I also got to work on HBO's His Dark Materials. And I got to work with Brent Weeks on his official Lightbringer companion album, which was released last year by the Black Piper. Some of you may know about them through their work on the Kaladin album, which was a Stormlight Archive album. So Booktube has been instrumental, pun intended, towards my work as a composer specializing in book adaptations. So it was fantastic. I got to write 45 cues. 40 cues are like pieces of music. 45 pieces of music across all 8 episodes of Wheel of Time Season 2. And I can't thank the Booktube community enough for, kind of inspiring me to take that leap of faith, and for, so many people who are Wheel of Time fans sharing that video that eventually let me get hired. So I'm very excited about kind of being able to speak on my experience on scoring book adaptations along with my favorite kinds of books and things like that. So question number 3, what are you most excited for about this new channel? So like I said in question 2, I'm really excited to talk about the books that inspire me, which are fantasy, sci-fi, horror, historical fiction, and memoirs. And historical fiction is kind of new for me, so I'm very excited to kind of dive into that a little bit more as well. And then on the other side of it, I'm really excited to be able to talk about my experience scoring adaptations, maybe doing tier lists, like what were some of the best soundtracks for different book adaptations, what works, what doesn't. How does one craft a sound for a particular season of a show that is based on the source material? How do you balance, depth and love of the source material and the character arcs with how they invariably get changed during the course of the development in the TV show, and how to kind of match the music to do justice both to, say, in this case, Robert Jordan's work, and then on the other side of it, what the show is trying to do. So it's very kind of a nuanced discussion, and I'm excited to be able to take part in and hopefully lead some of those discussions as well. Question 4, why do you love reading? That's such a tough question to really say in like a couple sentences, but I guess if I was able to quantify it in a way, reading was always an escape for me. I was always kind of a nerdy kid growing up. I was like, I was bullied a lot when I was in grade school, and books were always the thing that I turned to. I'd be reading at the playground. I would read any chance I got. I went to scholastic book fairs, and reading was my kind of portal towards discovering myself. Like, I remember my first reading experience was Michael Crichton. I read him when I was like 5 years old. I always wanted to do what the adults were reading, and I saw this Jurassic Park book, and I wanted to read that, and it kind of just opened my door, So reading means the world to me. It's the one hobby I turn to time and time again, every day, any chance I get. If I'm working on a piece of music and I'm rendering the files for delivery, and that's going to take a few minutes, I'll pop open a book. So books are kind of a thread that runs through my daily life. Number 5, what book or series got you into reading? So I would say if there was one series that got me into reading as a child, I would say it was Goosebumps. I collected like every single one of those. The first 50 books, I think. I would go to scholastic book fairs and stuff and collect them all. And I was like a day one reader. I would get it, and within 2 hours, I read the whole thing. I was like zooming through them. So as a child, that's what got me into reading. As an adult, or I would say in my teens, I discovered Stephen King, and then it was no looking back for me in terms of reading adult novels. So that was kind of that section of my life. And then I took a break from reading for a few years after college until I discovered fantasy and then Booktube. And that just made everything explode. And then I was suddenly going from reading like, maybe a dozen books a year to like 50 books a year. And I hope to even beat that number this year while keeping it fun. So that's kind of always my goal, is to balance the fun. Question number 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? That's a really good question. 1, would you like to be a guest on my channel? I think that's always like a pie in the sky goal, once I increase my subscriber count and things like that I think that would be the wonderful thing, would be to able to have a free-form discussion. I would even call it like a free-form conversation between myself and other booktubers to discuss kind of like their passions for books, what got them into reading. And, I say this about big booktubers and small booktubers, and maybe especially small booktubers, because I think it's fun to lift each other up in the community. And I think everyone has something unique to say, because everybody is the sum of their life experience. So I think that would be the first thing that I would want to ask them. And then maybe the second thing is like, how's your booktube journey been? What have been the challenges that you've faced? Some people have been on this platform for years, and I have a lowly count of like 1 month now. So I would love to know kind of what their experiences were, and how they kept it fun. I think always finding the joy in these things and keeping it fun is the key to longevity and towards creating a real lasting community. So that's something I'd be very interested in. So question number 7, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? So I wonder if longevity will be an issue. I mean, I'm saying this only a month, into this journey. So I find myself more motivated and more excited as time goes by to make videos. And, I don't know if that's going to obviously wane and ebb and flow. But I'd be curious, on how to keep it fun always, as much as possible. I think that would be one challenge, over years, that would be a kind of a fun opportunity to kind of go like, how can I create different types of content? How do I not make it like just top 10 lists, tier lists, and book rankings and book hauls and things like that? So I think that would be the first thing. And the second thing will be like, how do you deal with comments that may be kind of a little hurtful or something like that? Like, I have a pretty thick skin with these types of things. You kind of have to in the music business. So, it doesn't really affect me that much. But I would imagine these would be things that I would be thinking about as I continue my YouTube journey, that they'll kind of become more and more apparent. And it'd be interesting to kind of see how to deal with those things. So number 8, when did you start reading? So I kind of touched upon this before, but I really started reading when I was 5. I was an early reader, and it was to the point where I remember I was in kindergarten sitting in the hallway of a class, outside my classroom, after the class had let out. all the other kids were playing on the playground, and of course I had a book open, and I was reading Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, and the principal was walking by, and she's like, "I don't believe you're reading that," you know. I was like, "Yeah, I am," and I started reading it out loud to her, and she was like very surprised that like a kid would be reading Jurassic Park. Now, after that, I tried Full Disclosure, which by Michael Crichton. Didn't really take. I didn't know what the hell was going on, you know. So then I took a break for a couple of years until I found Goosebumps. So that was the book, I guess, that got me started reading. And yeah. Number 9, where do you read? So it really depends. I love curling up with a blanket in the morning, you know, before everyone gets up, like right around sunrise, and just sitting there. The cats are kind of sitting there after like they've had their treats in the morning, and I just like hang out with them and read for half an hour just to kind of get my mind going and get a little bit of time away from the screens before they take over my life. So I love doing that. I love sitting in my, I don't know if you can see it behind me here. I have like a little reading blanket and a reading chair. My wife got that for me when we first moved into this apartment. And a little end table there that's kind of messy, but and my Stephen King shelf back there. So I love sitting there to read and just kind of contemplate and stuff. And it's kind of nice to be in a workspace reading, because I find it's easier to concentrate sometimes because you're away from the computer, away from the phone, and yet it still feels like, oh no, this is something I take seriously in my life. It is something to relax, but it's also something that I feel, you know, I want to exercise discipline on so I can keep consistent with it. And that disciplined approach to reading, I think, keeps it fun for me, actually. And it actually gets me more motivated and inspired. So number 10, what kind of books do you like to read? So I touched upon this a little bit before, but I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I love horror. Stephen King's my guy. He's my number 1 favorite author, just in sheer quantity of books. And I love Robert McCammon too. Oh my God. I've discovered so many new authors through BookTube. But yeah, I love those. I love historical fiction. Has been a new kind of entry for me. I read Shogun for the first time in March. I read a Ken Follett book out of his Century trilogy. Excited to explore that genre. And I always grew up reading memoirs. Like before I moved to LA, I used to always read about different like rock stars and kind of their life story. And then it was fun to move to LA and go, oh, I know that place. Oh, that's where they used to hang out, and you know, that kind of thing. So that always kind of meant a lot to me. And so I have an eclectic, I guess, reading taste, but those are the genres that typically resonate with me. And number 11, what does your book collection look like? So it's really all across the board. So I have the Stephen King shelf here, and I'm going to do a bookshelf tour at some point soon. But in our living room, we have like a bunch of bookshelves, and we even have like a little book shrine on the living room wall, like by the mantle, that's dedicated to our favorite books and stuff. But I have, you know, a bunch of Brandon Sanderson, John Gwynne, like Robin Hobb, like all the kind of usual suspects in fantasy. I have George R.R. Martin, Malazan, you know, Dresden Files, all that stuff. And so it's very fantasy heavy out there. I have a Michael Crichton collection. I have a Robert McCammon collection. I have Blake Crouch, you know, all, you name it. But it's really in those genres. So those are my 11 BookTube newbie tag questions. So let me know if you have any questions for me in the comments, and I'll definitely answer those. And let me know, you know, kind of if you're on BookTube, you know, how long you've been on. Introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you all. And if you haven't joined BookTube yet, but have been thinking about it, I would love to know kind of what's prevented you from taking that next step to creating your own videos. Because I know for me, it took me like 5 years before I decided to actually turn the camera around and do this. So, you know, sometimes it takes the time it takes. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Again, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already and you're enjoying this, you know, kind of content. And I really look forward to meeting you all and just kind of creating a fun community here where we keep the books all about the fun. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. And until then, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I'll see you next time. Take care.